In this episode, I'll answer a student's question about her horse that resists circling online. And my answer will include a specific exercise as well as some important psychological nuances about how to do the exercise and why. So it's not just about getting the horse to circle, it's about figuring out how to cause the horse to understand and be motivated to join us on the circle. So here we go, episode 161. Hi, I'm Karen Rohlf, and welcome to Horse Training in Harmony. This podcast is about you making progress with your horse in a way that you both can love. It's about learning how to move and be in harmony. Because yes, you really can develop a horse to be both athletic and happy. When we show up as our best selves for our horses will show up for us. So let's get started. Now, in my Finding the Sweet Spot of Healthy Biomechanics online course, we do live Q&As with students every week. And I do them, and also my Dressage Naturally instructors. And students in the course are then able to ask questions, even submit little video clips for us to watch, and then we answer them. And we get to have a nice discussion, a little chat with them about it. It's such a fantastic way to get help applying the exercises and the concepts that we teach to your particular horse. So I thought I'd share one of those questions and my answer to it with you here on the pod. This episode will not only be, I think, interesting, but it'll give you an idea of the depth of the conversation that we can have inside these courses. And you'll get to hear also my thought process in solving this challenge for the student. It's not just one simple answer, but we've got to talk about it and discuss the intention of it and why we're doing it and some of the different particulars. So her question is about a very basic exercise, which is circling online. But in solving this problem, we do get a chance to use some pretty powerful concepts and ways of looking at the whole process of improving it. And even though this is a question about a pretty basic exercise, and you might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with dressage or improving a horse's biomechanics? But it has everything to do with that. So we start in the program solving the basic foundational pieces, because those set up everything for the future. So it doesn't matter what a horse's posture looks like if they're resisting even making a circle. So whenever we look at healthy biomechanics, or the way I teach it, I'm always looking at the mental emotional state first. We want to make sure that they understand and they're feeling safe and okay and willing to join us in what we're asking. That already is going to improve posture, because things like fear, confusion work against the posture we're trying to create. Okay, well, we'll just get into it. So we'll now start the recording from one of the weekly live Q&As in the Finding the Sweet Spot of Healthy Biomechanics course. Okay, so our other question is from Amy. She would love ideas for how to help a horse that pulls out, turns her head, or bulges in the circle game, and occasionally stops and rears. She says it happens in specific places, like nearer to her friends or going to her harder direction and to the left. I know that's not unusual for a horse to bulge out or turn away at times, but it feels like she's in a bit of a rut and things may be escalating. She said, my first instinct when I felt her do it the first time was just to keep her engine going by keeping her moving, by pointing the stick at her hip like you do in traditional lunging. That works super on day one, some mild tension, but it felt like we were speaking the same language. However, on day 2, she was sticky right off the bat and offered her first stop and rear right away after the first few strides of trot. I realized my body language and timing must be playing a role. I've noticed that when she bulges, I instinctively take a step forward and walk out with her, then as I realize I'm getting pulled off my balance, I close my fist on the line and pull back slightly to resist having the line pulled from me. This was going well until she pulled her head abruptly away from me, and I didn't use the stick at all because I was surprised. So she had more pressure on the halter and less communication about going forward, and she stopped dead in her tracks and reared. At that point, I wasn't in a good position to ask her to go forward with facing me, so I took a step towards her hind end, and she reared again and turned away more and tried to run off, and I could barely hold on. I can see this is escalating in the future as she's literally exiting the game. What do I recommend? Okay, yeah, so some big stuff. So my brain first goes to why. So it's pretty bold. I'm gonna say extreme, but it's pretty big behavior for simple requests. So my mind is thinking, why? Like what might be bothering a horse? And when you start thinking why for something like that, and because when you had the day where you really sent her forward and then the next day it was worse, my brain goes to physical discomfort. And you always kind of want to go there first just to kind of check because there could be a big physical reason, and if there is a physical pain or discomfort, you have to be really careful about sort of pushing them through it, because then it could just confirm and they're going to try harder to avoid it next time. So I want to always kind of step back and go, could there be a physical reason? And, it's tricky because we look at them and they're not limping. They look fine. The massage therapist was just there. The chiropractor was just there. They had the teeth. Everything seems fine, but still there's a behavior. But I also don't think we need to stop in our tracks and go not touch them and think, oh, there must be a reason. Ulcers, things like that. And even if ulcers weren't the root cause, if there is a root cause and the stress can create an ulcer, and now they're uncomfortable. So and ulcers are much more prevalent in horses than most people think. So just open to the idea that there could be physical discomfort, especially if it's worse in one direction or the other. Now, but then in the meantime, if she's, if it's maybe there's physical discomfort, but just not she's limping on three legs, and you think it would be fair, reasonable, and possible for her to move, she moves in the pasture and, things like that. How are we going to handle this? So there's a way to handle the behavior and also not feel too guilty in case there's something physically bothering the horse. So the main point is the goal is not going to be, I got to get this horse to circle. Right? It seems like that's the problem. I want to, she's not circling lightly on the line. I need to get her circling lightly on the line. The goal is that the horse feels like it's a pretty good deal to want to stay in the area and keep her attention on you. Right? So that's the main thing. So there's some reason she's I don't want to be here. So that to me is the first goal of I want to show my horse that it's a pretty good deal to be with me. And for the safety of all concerned, including, your horse, we need to establish some better communication about a couple things. So this is where I think it's tricky, because some people would just go all oh, don't ask her to do anything and just love on her. And other people get her going. And they're somewhere in between. So I would think about, my intention is the horse feels like it's a pretty good deal to hang around with me and watch me, and it's safe to do what I'm asking the horse to do. And it's really important to have that intention in your mind, because that's going to change the way that you make your request. It's not going to be from, come on, sucker, you got to listen to me. It's like, come on, what? I'm not asking for anything too hard. You can totally do this. And I'll give you scratches when you do. Right? So you can make the same request and ask for the same behavior, but coming from a totally different point of view. So the goal is, why do you want to leave me? I'm really cool to be around. While at the same time having a really high standard for very small requests, very small. So very simple requests, non-physically demanding, but like doable. So, and then huge rewards for doing it. So things like, you can be standing still and practice, like, I'm going to put a feel on the line and lead the forehand across in front of you, and like 2 steps. But we need that to happen. And look how easy it is, and look how simple it is, and look how appreciative I am. And that was it. Right? So that when you start asking, she doesn't feel like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. She feels like, oh, I can do that. And, that simple move of just like leading the forehand across you, forehand yield, with here's a feel on the line, follow that feel. And then if you need to help with the stick just to get them to take that step, real basics, then you can. But like, unless that's feeling like flowy butter with ears forward and super softness and anticipating every move, like there's a lot you can play with just that. Hindquarter yield. Hindquarter yield away, draw towards. Like if I put a feel on the line towards me, can you just nicely take 2 steps so that, as if you're leading a chihuahua, so there's lots of little things that you can have in place so you can be sure that you have those communications lightly, huge rewards, work on your timing, show the horse that you can do that you have that. Because in the middle of a big moment, if you don't have it that light in a good moment, they can easily, the next step for your horse is she does pull away from you, and then you're really in trouble. So I would bring it down smaller. Don't worry about the circling. Just keep her there and really play with the basic yields until you feel like you have a happy little, maybe not a chihuahua. I've had a chihuahua, so nothing against chihuahuas, but like a little Yorkie poo like I have now that's like sweet. And you feel like you can play in that space and your horse isn't trying to think really hard about how to get away from you. Then let's say that that's going well, that she's not trying to leave when you do that. You got really smushy, flowy yields, like the difference between, I have that video in the classroom, the difference between rolling a ball or moving a box of rocks, that feeling. And she's looking at you and she knows when she gets it and she's happy and she gets scratches or whatever she likes. Then I would play with the game of, it's in the classroom, January 2011, creating lightness on circles from the beginning, January 2011. And I play with my horse Natia, who, when she was young, she's big and she kind of just like get to the end of the line and just kind of use her body weight. So it's an exercise where you have I had barrels around a circle, and I would teach her to go out around the barrel and then come back. Go out around the barrel and come back, and play with it until when she was going around the barrel, she really wanted to come back because that's where the cookies were and that's where the rest was. And once she got good at that, then I go around 2 barrels and then come back, and then around 3 barrels and then come back. And then pretty soon we were going around the whole circle, and she kept asking, like, when do I get to come back? When do I get to come back? So it created the horse thinking about staying with me, and then I could send her away, but she was always thinking back towards me. So it's sort of a fun game where you're creating that the horse wants to, it's beneficial for the horse to want to be with you because they get what they want when they're in there. They get scratches and cookies and rest. And so it's a really good exercise in communication, directing the horse and creating the draw back to you, making you the happy, safe place, and creating motivation. Because pretty soon the horse is like, I'm going to hurry up and go around that barrel so I can hurry up and come back. And now she's putting in more effort to do the same thing. And then eventually, if she stayed light, I could keep her out on the circle. And when she was young, like after a few circles, she'd kind of get brain fuzzy and then she'd start pulling on the line again. She wasn't trying to escape. She just preferred a bigger circle. And then I'd bring her in again. Oh, be ready. We might come in again. So that January 2011 exercise is also one of my absolutely favorite go-to ones. And what's cool about that exercise is it actually helps horses who want to cut in. Like Cora wants to cut in on the circle, and I use that same plan to be able to communicate for her to go out. Like, go out first, then you can come in. And then also, interestingly, the same exercise that I recommended for Anya, in the Sweet Spot course, module 1, additional videos, step 4, the following your focus on circles, I show the circle with cones, and I'm riding and I stop between the cones, and then we go through. You can do that online also. So online, have your horse stop between the cones, and at the cones they wait and they get a cookie, and then go to the next set of cones, and you can practice your transitions, and you can do it at the walk until it's really good, and then add the trot, but they're thinking, I got to get to the next cone. So a way to use your horse's brain so that they're with you and they feel successful. And what's nice about these exercises, the way I'm describing it, is you can have a very high standard and high expectations and get it really good. And it's not physically demanding, because the most they're doing is going from one set of cones to the other, like a quarter of a circle or just around one barrel. And if that all looks good, then you can say, okay, now let's just keep it going for a while. And now you're, circling. And then you can sort of see physically what's happening. And does she look like she's limping? Is she sore? Is she whatever? But you can have that high standard. You can have excellent communication and do a lot of stuff without really putting any physical demands. And that way you can separate out that she doesn't have the excuse that, it's painful because you're not really doing much. And you build the trust that she can listen to you. She can give you 100% of what you're requesting, and she trusts that you're not going to make it hard work. That's, I think, the interesting thing. Can it be a high standard, high expectation exercise without it being hard physically? Is really, really cool. Well, I hope you found that helpful to hear how I would answer such a question. I didn't include the conversation or recording of the student, just kind of to help preserve the safe learning environment inside the Sweet Spot course, because when people send in their questions, they don't necessarily think that I might be broadcasting them on my podcast. So in this case, the student was not on the call. So even if you're not making the calls live, I answer the calls live, and then they can check back with me in our Facebook group and let me know how I did. So anyway, I guess I just wanted to say that so for the students in my course aren't thinking, oh no, if I submit a question, I might be talking on Karen's podcast. And no, I will not put anybody's voice or full name on the podcast without permission. So just felt like I needed to say that out loud. Anyway, I wanted to kind of just sum up my line of thinking. So notice that with the question, it's a pretty basic behavior. It's a behavior, my horse is pulling out in the circle and rearing. There's a lot of ways that might be dealt with, and, a lot of ways it could work. But I wanted to share my thought process, because it's not just about my magic answer, but it's a thought process, because you can also use this thought process and come up with your own solution that might work even better. when you're there, with your horse than what I'm imagining. But notice that my first thought was around pain. Well, my first thought was why, right? And that's an important step. A lot of times people won't go to why. They'll just focus on the what. Well, they're pulling away and rearing. They can't be allowed to do that. I need to control that. And my thought was, well, that's a symptom perhaps of something else. And we always want to entertain the idea that it might be pain because, pain is pain. And so my thought first went to, could it be pain? Let's entertain that idea and keep that in mind. If we're not sure, then how can we start to resolve the issue, keeping in mind that it could be pain, right? So notice I didn't go, oh, they must be in pain. Don't touch them. Stall rest. Don't touch them. You can't ride them or do anything. No, it's like, okay, it might be, but let's continue to investigate, but do it in a way that we're not going to feel guilty in case it is. It's a good rule of thumb. So first pain, then, wrapped up into the pain is safety, right? If they're not going to feel safe if we are insisting or forcing them to do something that is physically uncomfortable for them. So the pain, safety, trust all go together. And the trust part really comes in because we're not just putting them away. We're keeping them there. We're keeping them in the conversation. So if there was some discomfort and they're like, oh, she's still making requests of me, it's a chance for me to prove to my horse, like, hey, you can be in this conversation with me, and I promise that even if you give me full effort, it's not going to be hard. And a lot of times trainers lump those two things together. They're either horses doing nothing, or if they're doing something, it's got to be work. You got to give it to me and I'll show you that you can keep going and whatever. So I love this messy middle ground where we have to blend some things together of, I would like 100% response, but trust me, it's going to be so easy. Get 100% response at very, very, very simple things and then build on that. So in the simple requests of basic yields, you're getting a chance to practice your communication and prove to your horse a million times that you are acknowledging their effort, you see their effort, you're in dialogue and changing what you're saying based on what you're seeing and what they're doing. And you're going to be reinforcing effort and building up motivation. So, is there pain? I'm thinking safety, trust. That's kind of all shades of gray there. Then mental understanding is the next priority. Let's do something basic and really get it working well. And then after that, some motivation. So if we've got, some safety and trust and conversation, they're understanding. Now we can do it in a way that they're motivated to put in the effort, get a little more willingness because it's good for them. Like, oh, that was easy and short. Then we can maybe be in a circumstance where we could start to extend it. And in this case, maybe then at some point she can start trotting the circle. And if she's just starting the circle because she's like, oh, this is cool, just go around one barrel. Okay, maybe one more. Okay, maybe one more. Then I come in. Then we might see, like, oh, she's actually tracking up kind of short on that side that we wouldn't have seen if she was just busy bulging and pulling. So we have to promise ourselves and our horses that when they do join us in the game, that we promise that if we do see any signs of something that could be discomfort, we will, stop. But we have to figure out how to get them in the game. Anyway, that's it. I hope you found that helpful, and we'll see you next time.